Hello, everybody. This is Shannon Whistler, and I am here with my friend Judy Glazer. And we decided we'll give you guys a little bit of a real estate update today. So, Judy, you want to tell everybody where you do most of your business and tell us a little bit of an update?
Sure. Thanks, Shannon. First of all, hi, good morning. I am Judy Glazer with Century 21 Redwood. And so where do I do most of my business? I really do my business all over, although I'm licensed in Maryland and DC. So obviously the bulk of it is in Montgomery County and in DC, but I will go as far north as Baltimore. I don't work
Mhm.
in the Virginia market. Um, because of the company that I'm with, I do a lot of work with the military. So that really takes me all around the Beltway. So kind of full service when it comes to that, which is great. It keeps it interesting. I like being able to work in multiple jurisdictions and different types of neighborhoods. So it really gets me familiar with kind of everything around the DMV. So yeah, so that's kind of where I am right now. And then what was your other question, Shannon? I'm sorry.
I wanted to know, give us an update on the market, maybe how you're doing things differently now because of the virus.
Okay.
Um, you did mention that you had contract already one house go under contract without it being listed. So tell me a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, so it started off, and I've got some stats that I'll share with you as well. I mean, the first quarter was starting off with gangbusters. I already had 3 closings within just the first month of the year, one of which you were involved in. Um, and I had several listings coming up. I do probably 50 to 60% of my business in listings. So had all these listings coming up. It was really starting out to be a phenomenal year, and I'm seeing that in all the statistics. It was on track. The first quarter was on track to be way above what we were last year, and then the coronavirus hit. But I had one property that after we had done some renovation and staged it, we put it on the market, and I had it on a Thursday, had an open house on Saturday. Shannon happened to be there, and it was nonstop traffic. We had
Yeah, that was a
people the
busy day.
entire time, right?
Right.
And had multiple offers. Saturday night, Hogan made an announcement with regard to the stay at home. Um, Sunday we did an open house, didn't have one person show up. So it was quite a difference between Saturday and Sunday. But fortunately, as I said, we had multiple offers, went under contract, and we just closed on Friday. So that was great. And that was interesting because the closing process has definitely pivoted quite a bit from what we were used to. My client was older, so at risk. So he did not go inside the title company. He actually sat in his car,
Okay, good.
and they provided him with the documents, and then they FaceTimed him and walked him through the signing. And he was very pleased with how it went. They also were set up to do it electronically, but he was more comfortable with having somebody face to face, and physically signing. So we did that. And I have since had, so I have 2 more listings. So before that, I have a client who went under contract with a property that he's purchasing in Owings, Maryland, right next door to a property I sold to one of his best friends. So that's kind of fun. And fortunately, I would say fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know which way to look at it, he has to sell his home in Southern Virginia, which is taking a little bit longer than it probably would in a normal spring market. But as a result of that, the sellers on the property he's under contract for are being extremely patient and are extending his home sale contingency, partly I think in part because he's military, so he has a very secure position, whereas if they go back on the market and get a buyer, with the COVID addendums now where people can cancel contracts based on their job security, it's kind of a bird in the hand, so to speak. So we're fortunate that way. um, and then I had somebody who happened to just leave the Brooklyn area right before the pandemic, sold her condo there, and then sent a notification out through a neighborhood listserv. Happened to be in the neighborhood that I was preparing another house to get on the market, and we've gone under contract. So, we're just going through all the contingencies now to get that closed, and that keeps my client who's at risk, so was really not comfortable putting the house on the market right now until they move out, the comfort of not having to do any of that. And then lastly, I have a property that we did go on the market with the results of what happened on the Connecticut Avenue place going under contract so quickly. We threw our other one on fairly fast, and we're starting to get a lot of showings, and they started to get a little bit nervous. So they're going to move out, and we took it off the market, and we're going to put it back on next week once they've moved out into their other
Okay.
property.
Yeah.
So
So it sounds like people are just adjusting to what they feel comfortable with. If they feel comfortable moving out and then putting their house on the market, or
yeah,
some buyers are still touring properties with, masks and hand sanitizer
yeah,
and that.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the COVID addendum, Judy. I know that most realtors are using that now. Who does that protect? Walk me through that and tell me how that gives a little bit more security, I guess, to folks.
Yeah, it really protects both parties. So it just adds extensions, allowable extensions. If things, for instance, like a home inspection, if you can't get an inspector, those contingencies can be extended without violating the contract. Honestly, I've only used it once, so I'm not as familiar with it without reading it. But it just adds a little cushion, a little protection if things change with regard to somebody's employment.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, those of us in the industry felt like you're kind of covered anyway. So did we really need this extra layer of protection? Because as a
Gotcha.
lender, if somebody loses their job during the contract period, they're not going to qualify on the financing. So it was almost, we kind of felt like it was just another piece of paper we really didn't need to have. But if it adds a little bit of a level of security, I think the biggest part, which is different, is with regard to like the inspections and some of the things that are outside of their control.
Gotcha.
Closing issues. Now, I think those are settling down now that now that we're allowed to do the closings electronically. This first came out when title companies were trying to figure out, all right, how are we going to close? How are we going to get people, in front of us and in front of this paperwork? So, yeah, I know that a lot of people are waiving those because we're still seeing multiple offers. We're still in multiple offers, especially in DC. And I know one of the agents in my office removed the COVID contingency addendum to be more competitive on a property that his client was interested in purchasing. So,
Oh, okay. So it
yeah,
sounds like, we're all trying to change business practices just to ensure that we don't run into timeline issues, to ensure that we don't run into issues beyond our control because of extra precaution due to the virus.
yeah, I feel like everybody is, for the most part, people are trying to really be considerate, and I'm seeing maybe a gentler, kinder buying and selling situation environment than you would normally see in a spring market. The
Yeah.
spring market is normally very cutthroat. So, and that's the other thing that people need to think about. I mean, there are houses on the market, less than we would normally see in a spring market, but certainly more than we saw last month. I'm seeing an increase definitely in the properties that are coming on. As a matter of fact, I just ran some really quick comps just for DC and Montgomery County for single family homes and townhomes. And there are currently 179 properties in the coming soon status. That means within the next 21 days or less, depending on when they went into coming soon, we're going to see those properties hitting the market. We are seeing a lot of temporarily off, which again,
Okay.
those properties will be coming on once people feel more confident. So there were 405 of those in those two jurisdictions, one of them being mine, which will go back on in a week. So
Okay.
there is inventory out there, at least 400 less than what we would have seen before this happened. And in some cases, it's people that are just nervous to have buyers in their home. But and then I have some questions for you, Shannon. But the last thing I want to mention about that is, I said, working with the military as much as I do, even before the whole COVID thing, I sold a lot of houses to people that never were able to physically show up in the home until the day of
Right.
close, and sometimes not even then. In Japan and in California and various different places because of their assignments. And if there was no virtual tour, I would take my iPad and I would walk through the property for them. So this is not new to me, but it's new to a lot of buyers. And I know that you still want to get a sense of the feel of the house, but it is doable, and we are making that work. I mean, the person who's under contract for the property that I didn't quite get on the market yet, you know, my seller did the same thing, just did a virtual because I hadn't had a chance to do that yet. And then, you know, we did then arrange for her to come in, but she was already, you know, pretty much sold on the property just from the video and the photographs and the description. And she already knew the neighborhood. So, um, you know, I think that's here to stay because, again, we have a lot of people that just can't physically get out and get into the property. So I think it's going to be better with the advent of more sophisticated video equipment and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're being forced into the future a little bit, maybe
Yeah,
maybe a little bit prematurely, but I think it's a good thing. You know,
yeah,
everybody, and especially, you know, folks count on us to give them convenience and service.
right.
So I think being able to do a video tour, being able to do everything online and not have to meet in person, because we know this area, it's a busy area. People live busy lives, and even something as important as a home sale, you know, is tough to make it work with you know, everyone's multiple busy schedules.
Right. Well, and then traffic. So we don't have that right now, which is nice. There is still some, I'm seeing more traffic than I had a month ago. Do you feel that? Are you seeing a little bit
Yeah,
more?
I mean, I've been pretty much staying put, so I haven't been out and about too much,
Okay.
but you know, luckily I can do my job right from my home office desk, so I haven't had to go out too
So
much,
let's
but
talk a little bit about that. What are you seeing as
yeah.
far as interest rates? Are you seeing, I know they're pretty low right now. Do you think they're going to stay like that? Or what is what's your
Yeah, so unfortunately, you know, we're headed to recession if we're not already there. So when economists look at a recession, you have to hit certain markers, certain amount of months in a row, and then you look back and you said, okay, we're in a recession. So typically a recession means low rates. So we're in a low interest rate market right now anyway, and I think you know, it's going to take a while for our economy to recover and to get back to some sense of normal, because right now you've got a couple market forces at work here. You know, the Fed is also buying mortgage-backed securities to
Mhm.
prop up the market so we can keep interest rates low, so we can keep lending money. So, you know, if your mortgage is in the fours right now, it's probably a good time to talk about refinancing. If you're looking to purchase and you're in that, you know, under $510,000 range, you're going to be in the low threes. If you're above $510,000, you're going to be in the high threes. So historically, that's still super low interest rates. And everybody that I've talked to, every talking head that I listen to, um, seems to be the consensus that rates are going to stay low throughout the summer and probably in the fall as well.
Well, and I'm seeing more people for me anyway, you know, because like I said, I do a lot of listings, you know, so I was pretty much blessed with having almost all listings so far this year. But I am seeing more buyers all of a sudden now starting to jump into the market. And partly is because of the interest rate. They don't
Yeah,
know what's going to happen months from now. And although we still have limited inventory, there's still enough out there that there are properties to buy. So, you know,
sure.
that's encouraging. And I mean, I know there are buyers because of the properties I'm selling. So,
Right. And I feel like there's a lot of pent up demand. You know, there's been a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for these historic low interest rates. Well, we're there.
right.
So I feel like it's a good time for a lot of people. And especially if you're a buyer now, I would assume that you're going to have a little bit less competition. So if you're an
Yeah.
interested buyer, I would advise you to get pre-approved, get your paperwork in line, contact a mortgage professional, see how much you can qualify for, and get serious about looking, because it's a really good time.
Well, and what I would also suggest, and you know, we were on the same call, the mastermind call, where people were discussing how we see the market going forward. And I know there was one really well-known broker out of the Baltimore area who works with a lot of new construction, and he was saying he felt that we were going to see a lot more two office households. Um,
Oh, right.
you know, I think people that weren't necessarily thinking about selling are now considering selling because they've been cooped up at home with their significant other and children, perhaps, and working from home and realizing, you know, this space just isn't going to work if
Hmm.
one, a lot of offices are going to, let me just back up. I think the commercial end of real estate is going to be hurt far worse than the residential. I think the residential is actually going to come very strong. I think we're still going to see a spring market, but it's going to pivot into more of a spring summer market. Already starting to see that, seeing like with all the coming soons.
Hmm.
Just to share with you a little bit, we've got, there are 578 under contract and 1,171 pending contracts just in
Oh,
DC
wow.
and Montgomery County. That's not Virginia. That's not PG County. That's not Howard County. So people are still buying. People are out there and they're buying. My suggestion would be, don't be afraid if you have to put your house on the market in order to purchase another home, because again, I'm seeing more home sale contingencies with people that are, for instance, saying, this space just isn't going to work. This one bedroom condo was great, when we were both at work all day long and just coming home for dinner. But now that we may potentially work from home, if our company decides to downsize or do more teleworking, which I think we're going to see a lot more of,
Yeah, people
we
just
need
want
more
their own
space.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, we need more space. My friend, who's also my client, she wound up renting down at the Southwest waterfront. She moved here from Arizona. Thought she wanted to be in an urban setting, walkable to everything. Well, now with this pandemic, she's scared to death to leave her home because people aren't social distancing down there. They finally shut down the wharf. She has all these common spaces that she has to share with people, like elevators, stairways, lobbies. Um, no green space, no opportunity to really get outside other than to be around people. And so we've had lots of conversations for when she's ready to buy that's not going to be where she's going to buy or the type of property that she's going to buy. She's now going to make sure that she's somewhere where she can have easy access to being outside and the space that she needs to be able to work from home. So
Yeah, I guess people's needs are going to change, and with that, the needs for their housing is going to change. So
yeah,
I agree with you. I think we're going to see a lot of movement, a lot of activity, buying and selling. And the good thing is rates are still low, so it's a great environment to make a move.
no, absolutely. I agree. So, my recommendation would be that if you're finding yourself in that situation, you were considering maybe selling anyway, I wouldn't wait. There are buyers out there. We just need the
Yeah,
properties for them to buy. And people are accepting home sale contingencies, which normally in a spring market would almost be non-existent. So I think that's a big change in what we usually see. So don't be worried, that you're not going to get your contract accepted. I would rather see you try than sit back and miss the market altogether.
yeah, and that's nice. It's nice that people are being a little bit less cutthroat and accepting of extenuating circumstances like a home sale contingency. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah, and with us easing up a little bit, I mean, I think we still need to take a lot of precautions. I know that golf golf courses have opened in Maryland, yay! And so, and I've got properties that I'm going to be showing over the weekend. But again, I'm going to be very, very considerate about keeping distance from my client, letting them go into the property. If they want me to see it for my opinion, we'll go in separately, that type of thing. I just did a home inspection on Saturday. Um, and he was very adamant about just, one person in the property. That's the other thing too. I mean, we have to plan for the amount of time in order to find the people that are willing to work. I have one home inspector that I use on a fairly regular basis who will only inspect vacant homes. So, you have to allow for those time frames that may have changed, and that's part of the COVID
Right.
addendum. That's kind of
Hmm.
what that's there
Okay.
for. So, um, so what
Makes
advice
sense.
would you have for buyers going forward, Shannon, with regard to
You know,
lending?
my advice is it's a good time to buy if you're thinking about it because rates are so low. But my advice is always talk to somebody early because the earlier you get to a mortgage professional, the earlier you get to a real estate professional, the more choices you're going to have, and the more we can prepare. You might need a little extra time to gather your documents. Maybe I see something where we could improve your credit by a couple of points to get a better rate. So, more time gives you more options. And I always think it's never too early to have a conversation with somebody like me or somebody like yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I find, and Shannon, you know that because I do refer people to you quite a bit, where it's like you're sending them to the dentist to get a tooth pulled. It's like, why don't you want to talk to a lender? That's the first thing you need to do. And there's always that fear, and that usually comes with them not knowing that their credit may not be great. And what I try to get them to understand is that, but a good lender will work with you on
Right.
improving your credit for the purchase that you're trying to make, because
Right.
it's different if you're buying a car, if you're opening up a credit card, if you're buying a house, correct? I mean, you can speak
Yeah.
better to that than I can.
Yeah, and it's just, I tell people all the time, we don't get taught this stuff in school. So I know it because this is what I do every day.
Yeah.
So, I'm really patient with people. I'd rather somebody take a week or more getting their credit in order so we can get them that super low rate. Like, while rates are low, we might as well get it as good as we can while we can. Like, I mean, it's kind of like, it gives me a little bit of joy, like getting somebody a really low interest rate.
Yes.
Because, like, that's what I'm here for. That's like, use my expertise. I've been doing this a long time and I can help people. And, sometimes it's just moving money around, or not moving money around, or closing an account or not closing an account. And a lot of it is not, instinctive. Some of the credit advice I give is counterintuitive. So it's easy for me to take a look at a credit report and maximize it so somebody gets the lowest rate possible. It's not hard to do, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, it's surprising to me. Well, it shouldn't be surprising because I probably was the same way when I first bought my house. But um, most people don't, first-time home buyers mostly do not understand that, talking to a lender is the first thing you have to do. They'll go on these credit or these mortgage calculators. They come up with a number they think they can afford. And there's so many things they don't understand that have to be factored into it. But I mean, I've taken classes that you've taught, and there are things that, even doing this 13 years, I'm like, oh, I had no idea that it works this way or it works that way.
Right.
And you're always super open to working with people and helping them to understand that, no, don't pay that off, pay this off, don't close this, don't close, all of these things that they just had no clue. And, they're extremely appreciative for, because now they have a better understanding of how this process works, because and it's always changing and evolving, I would
Right.
imagine.
And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in at once, and that's why you need somebody who, can be patient and explain it to you, so you feel like you know what you're doing going into it. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how I work. And it works out for the clients, and it works out for the agents, and it works out for everybody. I'd rather talk to somebody who's a month early or 2 months early, rather than get somebody who wants to put a contract on a house tomorrow.
Right.
The longer we
I'll
have,
take those. I'll take those people.
the
I'll
longer we
take
have
them
to
all day
prepare, the
long.
better prepared they'll be. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's a good thing. So,
Yeah. Well, and
all
it's
right.
it's a learning process. So it's nice to have people that are willing to take the time and explain that, like you.
Yeah. All right, Judy. I think
Yeah,
that kind of wraps it up for our
I
little
think so
market
too.
report. You want to tell people how to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so by all means, you can email me at judy.glazer, that's Glazer, at c21.com, c21redwood.com. And sorry, for some reason my background's not working. Otherwise, it would all be on there. Or you're welcome to call me on my cell phone, 703-929-0463.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks for doing this with me. I'm glad we had a little
Thank you,
chat.
Judy.
And
Good to see you.
yeah. And
Stay
anybody
well.
looking to buy or sell, give Judy a call. And anybody looking to buy or refi, give me a call.
Absolutely.
All right. Take
I can
care.
vouch for her. She's great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.